I'd like to introduce our speakers today. We're very honored to have a couple speakers today. First of all is Battalion Chief Linwood Buchanan. He is Battalion Chief in Hanover County, Virginia. A little bit of his background. He started as a volunteer firefighter with Hanover County in 1981. He worked as an emergency communications officer prior to being hired with the City of Richmond Fire Bureau in 1988. Went on to rise through the ranks as lieutenant, captain, and battalion chief before retiring in 2012 and came to work with Hanover County as battalion chief, where he and his wife Jackie reside. Of his 34 years of career service, he has 11 years experience as a company officer and 13 years experience as a chief officer. So Chief Buchanan, welcome, and thank you very much for doing this with us today.
Thanks, Ian.
And we're also very honored to have Chief Bob Clark. Chief Clark is a dual role here. This is the first time we've had basically a survivor, a fire hero family member on for the entire presentation with us. And he has a side. His son, Brad Clark, was killed. That's what we're going to talk about today in the vehicle accident. But Chief Clark has another side. He retired as a firefighter. He was a battalion chief with Henrico County and retired. So he's got both perspectives of the incident. So he's going to be with us today on it as well. So Chief Clark began his fire service career as a volunteer at Station 6, Henry Fire Department in mid-1960s. He joined the Virginia Air National Guard in 1967 and was assigned to the Air Crash Rescue Department. He retired in 1991 as a deputy chief there. He was hired by Henrico County Division of Fire in 1969. He served in several stations and sections throughout his 30-year career and retired in 2000 as battalion chief. Chief Clark, again, thank you very much for taking the time to spend with us today.
My pleasure.
All right, a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. Lieutenant Brad Clark and his engine company were arriving on the scene at a motor vehicle crash on I-295. As the crew was disembarking the apparatus, they were struck in the rear by a tractor trailer. The force of the impact drove the engine over top of Lieutenant Clark, pinning him under the front right tire of the engine. Lieutenant Clark was killed instantly. Two other firefighters received life-threatening injuries and were transported to the hospital. So that's the incident we're going to talk about today. So Chief Buchanan, we'll start to you, and then Chief Clark, if you can just chime in as goes, because the most important question, the most important thing, tell us about Lieutenant Clark. Who was he? What do you want people to know about him?
Well, he was a fireman's officer. He was always mission first, all about the mission. He was a straight shooter, much like his dad. You always knew where you stood with him. It didn't matter what rank you are, but you knew where you stood with him. He would call you out in a minute, and he'd make fun of himself if he made the same mistake. He was a loyal friend, and trust was big with him. If he trusted you, he would contact you on a daily basis if you were in that inner circle of friends. He was a good judge of character, and he knew a lot of people's potential that he worked with. Even if they didn't, he could see those qualities in him. He was always accountable for his actions, and he was always worried about, when he was off, how his guys did. He called me up one day. He says, "Hey, they just had a house fire in their first in." He says, "Hey, how'd my guys do? I really want to know. Don't shoot me any bulls. Tell me how they did." And I'm like, "Brad, they did fine, man. They knocked it out the park. They hit all their benchmarks. The fire went out quick, fast water, everything was good, man. You should be proud. That's great leadership." And he was that guy. He was very much a family guy, a girl dad, and a loving husband to Mel. He loved to train his guys all the time. His big thing was Andy Frederick's training days, and I had heard of that, but I'd never gone. He got me to go. He would rally the troops, get a big group to go, and they loved it. And he was finally able. He said, "I'm gonna present here one day," and he did. He knocked it out of the park, and the rest is history. He was a cheerleader for his men and women. Anybody he worked with, he just wanted to push him forward and see him succeed. He was just that kind of guy.
Excellent, thanks. Chief Clark, tell us about your son.
Only thing I'd like to add to what Chief Buchanan said was I vividly remember Brad prepping for the Andy Fredericks class, and he was so nervous. And I kept trying to reassure him. I said, "Man, you're not going through anything different than any speaker or instructor or teacher have done. You want to do good, and you will." And I'll never forget, he called me right after his presentation He was like a kid in the candy store, and from there on, his career had already started soaring. But boy, he got the fever then, and that's when he really started skyrocketing.
And Chief Clark, interesting, this picture on the left here was taken, I guess, right before the incident, correct?
Yeah, I tell you, that's one of my favorite pictures because he and his crew were there that morning at the daycare center doing what firefighters do, trying to reach out and teach these kids how to handle themselves in situations, primarily fire. And he was doing that. I guess that class was somewhere around 11 o'clock that morning. And it's just amazing to look at that picture and just to see him, he and his crew. And, it's just another horrible example of, man, we just don't know what's going to happen. And you really need to prepare for these things. I mean, 99% of us go through the career. I spent 30 years in it. And sure, we had close calls, but the daggone interstates are so hazardous now compared to what I had to deal with. I mean, I could go on and on, but I love this picture. It just says so much that, they're reaching those kids, and roughly 9 hours later, he's no longer with us.
Good. Thank you all very much. Chief Buchanan, we'll go back. Tell us about the day incident. I understand there's a storm coming through. Tell us how the lease.
Tropical Storm Michael was on the horizon there to come through. It was a normal ship day. I'd been out doing rounds. Brad and them had been out picking up fire prevention signs and shuffling trucks back and forth from the shop. Transfers had come out. They were getting ready to lose a guy to another station. So they were going to prepare for a dinner that night. We also had a recruit graduation coming up that night, and we were getting a bunch of new recruits out there. We were getting Carter Lewis that evening. The executive staff decided it's like, hey, the storm's getting ready to come through when this graduation is going to take place. Let's overstaff with the recruits, the companies, and that way that'll give them some more help. Things go crazy. So Carter Lewis was luck of the draw that night, and he got to go ride with Brad's crew. And Carter's a quiet little fella. I said, well, I knew him from his volunteer days here in the county, and I'm like, that's going to be great for Carter. He's gonna learn some things he probably doesn't want to learn, but he's gonna have a good time. He's going to learn some things, and that's going to be a good experience for him. So they were getting stuff done. They had a pub ed that morning, which you saw the picture of that. And Brad and I had a conversation earlier on the ramp about the guy that was leaving. And hey, boss, he's a good guy. He's going to be a great senior man. Look after him. He likes to train. Help him with his opportunities. No problem. Got it, Brad. I'll probably see you later on, on the street somewhere. Got it. And that was it. We were done. They went on to doing what they do the rest of the evening and taking it easy because they know they're going to be running when the storm comes through. And I finished up rounds, went back to the station, and was doing work there.
All righty. And then leading up to the incident, what happened? I mean, you got dispatched for a vehicle accident.
So Hanover County has two interstates that run through it. Interstate 95 running right through the middle of the state, and then 295 runs east and west as well. So we go to the 38-mile marker on a regular basis. I don't know what it is about that place before this even happened, but if one drop of water hits the interstate, usually somebody spins out, and that's where we end up going. So engine 6, medic 6, rescue 10, battalion 1, we all got dispatched to a 2-vehicle motor vehicle accident on the interstate. Storm is starting to come through, rain, wind, things are picking up. Tornado warnings, torrential downpours are forecast. Those are starting to come on in. So we go to this call. The radio is crazy. The guy working on the radio was doing a phenomenal job bouncing everything out. Can't say enough about that guy and that team that night. our EOC was staffed up because of the tropical storm coming through. They had staffed the EOC up with some of the executive staff and other departments there. So Engine 6 gets there and they mark on scene, and we've got a 2-vehicle accident. And that was that was Brad's last transmission that he had. Rescue 10 was coming down south on 95 to hit the interstate to come that way. And nobody knew it at the time, but this tractor trailer that hit the engine is what passed them on the interstate during the storm. As they got out, they took a block like they normally do. And when they took that block, Brad got out, saw the tractor trailer coming as the guys were dismounting, yelled to his crew to take cover. Chris Ellis, who was riding that day behind, he jumped back into the cab. Dave Johnson was hit and Carter Lewis was hit. So now we've got the whole company is out of service now. I mean, it's not good. And nobody else is there with them. Medic 6 is coming in behind them. And Medic 6 came in and said, Medic 6, we're on the scene. Looks like we got a tractor trailer into the engine. We possibly have a firefighter down. The next transmission was Medic 6, got a firefighter down, send me 3 more medic units. It is not the radio traffic that you want to hear by any means. It definitely makes you sick to your stomach. So you're just trying to figure out what am I going to have when I get here. After that, he reiterated again by another radio transmission. We have a firefighter down. We need assistance. Rescue 10 had gotten there, Lieutenant Johnston and his crew. When they got there, they pulled in. Lieutenant Clark was pinned underneath the engine. They had a tractor trailer driver that was pinned inside. They had a significant diesel fuel leak from both saddle tanks, and they had 3 other firefighters that were injured. So him getting there right then, he's trying to triage the injuries and see what we have. They ended up, they ended up getting, prior to my arrival, getting there, Lieutenant Johnson had given me a radio transmission that said, hey, we got 2 red firefighters and 1 black firefighter, which in triage, you got critical and passed. And that's one of the worst nightmares any incident commander or anybody in general would want to hear. They ended up with Brad being under the engine. They had to get inside of the cab of the truck, put the truck in reverse, and back it out because he was wedged inside of there. As soon as they felt a little bit of freedom, they pulled him out. He had succumbed to his injuries there on the scene. I called Henrico County, which is the neighboring jurisdiction with us. And because of his report that he had given me, I asked for a hazmat response for the significant diesel fuel leak, and I also asked for an extrication response. We had an extra engine coming with us and some extra manpower. They were on the way, but had not gotten there yet. So Henrico was on the way to help us as well. I got about a 5 to 10 second transfer of command in the middle of a torrential downpour and tropical storm, which was probably as good as you'll ever get. Very smooth. He said, look, I've got 1 trapped in the tractor trailer. Lieutenant Clark is dead. I've got 3 other injuries. We need some help. No problem. I got it. So I took command over then. Chief Phipps and Chief Eddie Buchanan arrived right after that. Chief Eddie Buchanan I gave him a quick brief. He went directly to VCU. And Chief Phipps was in his vehicle, and he was working the back channels to assist us with mutual aid and people coming into the scene. It was very hard to stay focused, but it was, with all that, it's like it's happening so fast, but it's happening like in slow motion. But these guys worked. I mean, I can't say enough about them. They ended up Medic 6 scooped up Dave Johnson, who was driving Engine 6 that evening. They scooped him up, got him in the back of the medic unit. He was unconscious, took him directly to VCU. When Engine 7 got there, Lieutenant Jordan's crew, one of their ALS providers hopped into Medic 10, which came as well, and they were able to get Carter Lewis, who was over in the median with patient care done by a Rescue 10's crew. Nothing is going right. I mean, it's going right for us, but the conditions are just the rain is going sideways, the wind is blowing, it's just, and there's diesel fuel everywhere. Everybody's got a cool head, everybody's working hard. We've got these guys in the transport units and moving. I had looked at my boss and like, what in the heck has just happened here? It's like disbelief. Nobody would have thought this would ever happen, you know, in your career, that this would, you know, you'd have to do this. Everybody got transported. And then it got to be a little sticky there. You know, you never want to, well, let me back up just a second. Henrico came in. They brought a command team in with them. They took care of our diesel fuel leak because they're the state team. And Chief Phipps had started briefing them on what we had, what we were doing. So they were coming in for a transfer of command over to them. And it was seamless. Some of the things that we had that were having issues with, somebody had put their coat over top of Brad. It had a different name. We had identified Brad. My partner and I had identified Brad the first time. And then when someone had put their coat over him, excuse me, law enforcement had said, hey, are you sure this is him? So then we had to identify him again. Social media is blowing up. Our communication devices, like my phone's in my pocket, is drenched. I can't call out. You know, people can't call me. I can't call out. I can't get anything. Nobody's been notified of anything. No family members or anything like that. Bob, I guess I'd gotten a call earlier from someone, and he had come to the other side of the interstate, and he had made his way over across it. You know, VSP is there, state police is there, the sheriff's office is there, you know, the who's who of VDOT, everybody's there. Bob comes over to where my vehicle was parked at, and he's like, hey Chief, where are y'all taking Brad to? What am I gonna tell this guy? I had no clue what to tell him. I know what I'd like to tell him, but I can't tell him. So I said, just hang tight a second. Let me get somebody over here. So I walk over there and I talk to those guys there, and he said, like, I really need to know where he's at, you know, so I can go. I'm like, it's a very uncomfortable situation to be in when you're talking to the guy's dad that you know. And you know, he already knew, because he knew where Brad was and where he was working and all that. But Sheriff Hines, Chief Martin, and myself were all there together, and Sheriff Hines broke the news to him. Not a good thing to tell a father that his son has passed away. Definitely not something I want to be a part of. After everyone had gotten transported there, our guys were spent. I mean, they were spent. They had worked their butts off. You could see the emotion and distress on their faces. They're consoling each other. I'm like, I asked my boss, like, we got to get these guys out of here. We've got to get them away from this. I don't know if it was the right thing to do, but I got them all together in a group, and we just prayed. Amen. All of us together, we just prayed. If there's anybody else going to get us through this, he was. So, you know, that was a moment that, you know, everything was silent in the world. It was just us. And other staff vehicles were coming in, and they were taking people to Station 7. We got the guys out of there, and we left everything. We left the tools, we left the trucks, we left everything. My vehicle went back to number 7, but Henrico had just came over and took that scene for us. It definitely was not, excuse me, it definitely was very emotional at the time. I don't know how else to describe it. We have a very young workforce in age. So for them to have something like this early in their career, and that's very traumatic for them. It's traumatic for me, and I've done it for a while. So we ended up getting everybody to Station 7, which was just off of the interstate, and that's where we started to go back and decompress and things like that.
Excellent. Thanks, Chief. Chief Clark, your day. Anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, the first thing I want to say is you go back through, number one, you don't have time to think about what your actions are going to do to the crews. And yeah, I got word through social media that there'd been a crash, and then some other information came in that it might be another unit. So, I kind of relaxed at that point. And then I got a phone call from my youngest son, and he said he thought it was Brad. So I had to go right in the middle of the storm. It's just one of those things that the dads do. So got to the scene, and the state police tried to hold me back, and I stayed for about 10 minutes, and I couldn't handle it. So I told the trooper, I said, "Hey, pal, I'm going across the median. You're welcome to come with me." And like Chief Buchanan said, just by not hearing anything, I knew my worst nightmare had come to the surface. And it's tough, but I can tell you, having had almost 4 years now to rethink this, I cannot imagine what Chief Buchanan went through. And kudos to you, Chief. I guess as a chief officer, there's no guessing to it. Nobody wants to lose one of the troops. But there was absolutely nothing that could have been done to change the outcome that night. The only person that could have done something was the truck driver. He had the option not to be on that road that night, and he already had indicators to his rig that he shouldn't be driving. But nonetheless, Chief Buchanan and those firefighters on that interstate, I love them to death. And when I finally heard from the sheriff that it was my son, I knew Brad was in the best hands possible. And at that point, and I've second guessed this, I probably should have gone to the hospital with Brad, but I had to worry about the rest of the family at that point. So, but I can't emphasize enough the professionalism, the level of command. You folks did an amazing job. And as we all know, if you're in the fire service for any length of time, we can't save them all. They're incidents that are going to happen to citizens, and we just don't have the time. We don't have the opportunity to make that difference. And so, again, Chief Buchanan, I love you like a son, and I'm so proud of what you did. And I also want to mention that Chief Jethro Powell and his department could not have done, in my mind, any better than what they did. I'm totally amazed at the love and support that we've had from them and the rest, the metro departments, my former department was amazing. The city of Richmond, I lived 30 some years in the fire service, and I knew the brotherhood. I just didn't know how deep that well was. It's amazing the people that reached out. I have a daughter that lives in Roanoke, and about a month after Brad passed, we got word that our grandson had leukemia. The next thing I know, the Roanoke County and Salem fire departments had a work day at my daughter's house and came over and painted and but it's just, I've often said, if we could package up this brotherhood of the fire service, we could change this world. I mean, it's just amazing to me how you can, and I know there are a lot of folks listening, that you can go to any fire station probably in the world and show your retiree badge or your current duty badge, and you're immediately a brother. And that is just priceless.
Thanks, Chief. Appreciate that. We got a few pictures of the incident here. We'll take a look at.
Ian, one of the things is, as the interstate was shut down, when the medic units were coming in, they had clear guidance of what they were coming into and what they were getting. So when Medic 10 got there, they knew exactly where their patient was. They knew exactly what they needed to do, and they were not on scene long. Every medic came in as like a pit stop in NASCAR. They stopped, got out. We got the people loaded, got them out of there. VCU is across 2 jurisdictions from us, but in miles, it's very close. So it's not a long trip. It's just across 2 jurisdictions. So we were able to free that truck driver out pretty quickly once we got everybody triaged and transported. So that was the last person to be transported out of there.
Yep. Any comments? I mean, obviously this is the truck, I guess the position afterwards, obviously, with the accident. So.
No, that's when you pull up and you see that, that's not, where do you start? Where do you start? And when you have officers giving you a great size up, like the officers that I had and acting officers did that evening, you're already getting a picture in your mind of what you're coming into, and that size up is invaluable to when you pull up. And you'll see, like on this picture here to the left there in the median strip, that's where Carter was, and I think Dave was there as well. One of the things this is the passport that we got. And if you notice, you got Brad as the officer is at the top, and Dave Johnson is the driver. He's flipped upside down, and you have Chris and Carter. The passports are very, they're a very important part of your day when you're on that unit. We could not find Chris Ellis. Nobody knew where he was. And when I tell you that our communications were soaked, we couldn't get out. We couldn't get a hold of anybody at the hospital. I knew where Carter was, knew where Dave was, knew where Brad was. We could not find Chris. Chris had jumped in Medic 6 and drove to VCU when they transported Dave. He was the guy, when Brad yelled, dove into the truck. He was able to, when they were transporting Dave, he hopped in the ambulance, drove the ambulance to VCU. And we couldn't put eyes on him until later. So we had to start a secondary search of the scene. That just takes it up one more level of, where is this guy? How did we miss him? And it's dark and it's pouring down rain. How we gonna find him? Is he up underneath the truck somewhere, or did he get thrown? And finally, we were able to get confirmation that that's where he was.
All right. We talked about the scene itself and the incident as it was unfolding. What did you experience in the aftermaths, the days, the weeks, the months afterwards of this?
Terrible. Disbelief. and this is where you make yourself vulnerable um, as a chief officer. And but it was one, it was disbelief. Two, it was failure, um, poor leadership, and most of all, guilt. Um, you know, the slogan, "Everybody goes home." What happens when they don't? Are you prepared for that? Um, I had felt like I had failed everybody in that fire department. It was terrible. Um, you know, try to stay focused on the mission. And all those guys that were there were close friends with Brad. So, when you're going by working and moving around the scene, is that Brad? Is it Brad? Is it Brad? Yes, it's Brad. But we had to stay focused on the mission. And at the end, I felt like I had disrespected those guys. Of I didn't let them pay their last respects. And that was tough. The guilt, a wife has lost her husband, kids have lost their dad, uh, a brand new guy, his first night on the job, is about to lose his leg, and have the fight of his life to get back. Another guy's a newlywed. His life has changed forever. He's never going to ride a fire truck again. And then Chris, he has to live with this traumatic event, for the rest of his life. And it's just, those are hard feelings to one, to put into words, but it's a hard feeling to function every day like that. So, I mean, like I went to the hospital. I had to give it a couple of days. But I went to the hospital to visit with each one of them, and it was just it was just gut wrenching. I had a hard time looking at Mel, because I failed her. I didn't bring her husband home like I'm supposed to. I kept in contact with all of my guys, all of my crews. They're struggling. We all are. But a guy told me once before, and it's probably the best words anybody ever told me. You can't take care of anybody else till you take care of yourself. And that was a hard lesson to learn. Is I had the same feelings they were having, but I was more worried about them and making sure that they're ready to go than anything with me. But it was very uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable facing Bob. This is not supposed to happen on your watch. It's not. And like I say, it's tough to hear. Everybody goes home. Everybody goes home. Everybody goes home. You know what? Well, everybody don't go home. And how are you preparing yourself as an officer or even as a fireman to know that? I mean, to how to deal with that? It's very tough.
Chief Clark, any thoughts?
I'd like to add into that. It's just like Carter Lewis, the young man that lost his leg, unfortunately. It was his first day as a career firefighter on duty. When you come out of recruit school, man, the sky is the limit. It's not even close to being on your radar. So his first night on duty, I pray to God that he doesn't have anything worse than that, is his worst day on duty for his career. And it's just things you just don't think about. And you certainly don't want to dwell on that in a recruit class, because you probably won't have too many recruits graduating. But it's something you do have to prepare the recruits for. You have to prepare the whole team for that. It's thank God it doesn't happen often, but when it does, you're in the middle of it, and you got to negotiate your way through it. And I'm just, again, so thankful for Hanover, Henrico, the metro area, state departments, even the FDIC they gave Brad, awarded him the Ray Downey Award, which in my mind is the pinnacle of any award you can get in the country. And it's just, it's amazing. And before I hush up, my family, it's just, you don't know how strong your family is until you really test it. And we've been tested with Brad's death and then a leukemia thing. And I'm so proud of my family. And I hate to single out anybody, but my daughter-in-law, Brad's wife, Mel Clark, she got the move over law strengthened in the state of Virginia, which was pretty cool. Right after people told us there's no way you're going to get that through this session of the Virginia legislature. She did it. We did it, but she was a spearhead, and I'm just so proud of her. And she still goes out and tries to send the message of the move over. And it's just amazing, friends and family. The only other thing I want to mention, Ian, I don't know if you're pressed for time.
No, you're fine.
Brad, somewhere along the line, and I'm thinking it was probably the military because he served 5 years with the Army, had learned about preparing a letter in case the worst situation happened. Unbeknown to me, he had done this. His wife, Melanie, knew about it. And I can't tell you how much of a treasure that letter is, because the knucklehead, he must have spent days on this thing, singling out everybody in the family and the impact they've had on his life and all his team members, and what a gift that was. But he even spelled out that he wanted to be cremated, things that we had really no idea about. But once we had that letter read to us, or we read the letter, it laid out a lot of those decisions that you as a family would ordinarily make, thinking you're doing the right thing. And I would encourage, here again, you don't want to focus on this kind of stuff in recruit class, but somewhere, fairly early in your career, you want to take care of your family. That's a good way to do it.
Thank you very much for that. That's good. I'll throw this in here now. Chief Buchanan talked about some of the feelings afterwards and stuff, which is very typical. And one of the reasons we do these webinars is, yes, what happened is very important, but the impact on the people. We're very fortunate to have Chief Clark here. We don't usually have family members on here, but on the fire service, the impact on the incident commander, the company officer, the fire chief is huge, and it's long-term and lasting. And one of the programs, and Chief Buchanan is part of this for us, is the uniform support groups, and he's part of our incident commander cohort. When a firefighter dies in the line of duty, then people that have experienced this in those positions, so in this case, as an incident commander, Chief Buchanan can reach out to another incident commander and help them through the process, because it's a lonely process, I'm sure.
It is. A lot of the focus is on the crew. A lot of focus is on the department in general, but a lot of focus is on the crew and the crew members there that were there that evening. And then the chief has a whole different area of responsibility that he's got to deal with. So you're kind of that middle guy there in the middle, right there. That's, you're not this part and you're not this part. You're like this part. So sometimes it's overlooked, but it's a very important part of the process there, because you're up and down on both sides of it.
Yep.
It was probably 6 to 8 months. I had to reach out to Melody. I said, look, I need to come by and talk to you. This is weighing on me pretty bad. So I called her up and she says, yeah, I can meet you. Come on by the house. So my wife and I went with me. She went with me to the house, and I just laid it out there for her. And I said, I don't know if I know that I haven't, and I don't know if anybody else has, but I am sorry, because it happened on my watch, and I feel responsible for that. And it's one of those things that it's going to eat at you. It's a fact. It's just going to eat at you. I'm thankful that I had supportive bosses that kept a check on me and were able to help me with anything that I needed, whether it was for them, for me, or whatever. And they gave me updates on, Carter and Dave. So that's priceless to have.
Very good. So from a confidence issue as a chief officer, you run the next accident on the interstate. Is there an issue for you here? What would you work
Oh, yeah.
through this?
Oh, yeah. The only way that I could regain my confidence was like relationships, friends, and a supportive spouse. It took a couple days to get back in the saddle. Chief Phipps called me up and says, "Hey, man, I need you to come back to work. I need you. The department needs you to come back to work." And I'm like, "I don't know, man. I'm just not a good place." But I knew that's something that I have to do. I mean, I pride myself on disciplined fire ground, accountability, making sure the tasks are done and everybody's working. But I just lost a whole company on a call, so my confidence was shaken. We go out there and you're uneasy. You're very uneasy when you go out there, and sometimes I would go first. And kind of survey the scene, but then I'm out there by myself right there. That car is out there by myself, and that's not going to stop anything. Other times I would be the last one in line to go, and I would kick the traffic over to the side away from the vehicle so they could get out safely, where cars were starting to move over into the other lanes so those guys could get out. But it was tough. I mean, you had to go by that 38 every day, sometimes 2 and 3 times a day. One of the days that I'd just gotten back, a state trooper had been hit, and his car was spun out in the median. I look on the back of his bumper; it's got, "Stop for emergency vehicles, move over." Here, this bumper's torn off the car. Nobody was paying attention to it. It's when I left that evening, I had to go back by the scene again, and you gotta look at it all over, and it's just. It just emotional distress and just draining, where you just didn't feel like doing anything. And a buddy of mine, Jason Irby and Jason Burrow, had said, "Look, we got this guy we want you to talk to, Jim Fargo from Prince William. He's part of this group as well. You need to go talk to him." And he had a fire incident with Kyle Wilson, and while the incidents were different, the aftermath is the same of what you deal with, the feelings and things like that. And having to go talk to somebody like that was invaluable. I mean, we had peer support groups coming in from the department, from the metro area, national IAFF. But I didn't know any of those guys, and I didn't have any kind of a relationship with them. Of course, I didn't have that with Jim either. And sitting down and listening to him and helping me understand how these things were normal was good. And getting back in the saddle and going to the incidents, being more cautious or not complacent, was a big thing. It's just the reassurance from your leadership team above you, and the respect and the confidence that the men and women of your department show you, that work with you every day or work for you, that helped me get my confidence back.
About the department itself, any confidence issues running these calls from a department standpoint?
This was the first for Hanover County to have a line of duty death like this. And Chief Pilot has had several line of duty deaths, mostly occupational. But then there was Brad was the first that has happened on a scene like this. We got a lot of support from our neighbors, Henrico, Richmond, Chesterfield, Goochland, Caroline, Spotsy. All those departments were very helpful with sending in staffing, sending in peer support groups, those type of things. And coming from Richmond, all those guys that I used to work with were reaching out to you. "Hey, what can we do to help you? We've worked with you for a long time. We know how you are." And the networking and the people were big for everyone involved with it. We had a lot of spiritual, emotional opportunities from members, from chaplains, and for us to bond as a family. Again, I said the peer support from the local level, the department level, the metro level, the IAFF. significant county administration support, not the fire chief, but the board, county administrator, and other departments. I mean, top notch all the way through. Sheriff Hines' crews, top notch. VSP, same thing. VDOT, everybody. I can't say enough about them.
Excellent. Any changes in the agency after this? Did you do anything different, SOPs, department wise, anything?
Yes. So we reviewed the SOPs, the policy for interstate response. We went from 2 to 3 large pieces of equipment, of apparatus going to the scene. My boss, Chief Phipps, he had gone to advocate VDOT. He had gone to a bunch of those VDOT meetings to advocate for safety services coming out on a 24-hour basis right there at the 95 and 295 all through Hanover because of this incident. And he advocated enough where we got it, and they are very helpful on the scene. We changed the ride-alongs. We had a couple ride-alongs that night, and thank goodness there were none on that engine, but we had a couple ride-alongs, and we've changed the way we do that. They have an accountability tag, and they are listed into the staffing matrix in the mornings that they're riding and the hours that they're riding, so we know exactly who it is, emergency contacts, all that stuff.
Excellent. Been about 4 years since the incident. What do you want firefighters, officers to know about the incident itself?
Complacency kills. I'm not saying Brad and them were complacent, but you need to have a heightened alert when you're out on the highway. We talk about the move over laws and things like that, but you need to make sure your blocks are tight, that you're following the policy that's set out there. If you've got one on the shoulder, then take the other lane with it. Take enough room. You don't have to take the whole interstate, but take enough room where you can work comfortably. Make sure all your PPE is in place, your helmets, your vest, your visibility is good. Lights on your trucks are good, and that they're visible. Make sure your accountability tags are in place. We talked about that passport earlier in the interview. That passport's very important if something does happen. Who is it? Who's here? Where are they at? What are they doing? You want to make sure that you have that accountability there. And Brad's situational awareness is what saved his crew. Brad gave his life up for his crew, hands down, and that speaks volumes of who he was. And know your people. Know your people. That's a day within itself, but know the people that you're working with.
Chief Clark, anything to add about the incident and what you'd like people to know about it 4 years later?
Yes, I do. I've never made the right contact. I've had the opportunity to go to the National Transportation Safety Board meeting in DC like a month after the crash. And people from all over the country were there, and boy, they heard my story. And I lost traction with that program. What I would like to see, and this certainly is not going to help Brad, but it'll help. I'm convinced it'll help other firefighters out here on the streets from now on. If we could develop or get developed a video or some kind of visual of this crash, because this crash had so many ripple effects. I mean, you've got certainly my son is no longer here. You've got the life after losing your husband, your child, your son, your co-workers. I mean, it goes on and on. But I still feel like the one person that could have made a difference that night was that truck driver. And if CDL truck drivers are exposed to a video, either this crash or any crash, it doesn't matter. But I know that having gone through training programs my whole life, if you see a video up on the screen as a truck driver, it's got to make you think, even if it's 10% of truck drivers, it has to make you think, good God Almighty, I would never want that to happen while I'm driving a rig. And I'm convinced that it would be beneficial. Certainly expensive, we got that whole thing. But in my mind, if we were able to attach this 10-minute training program to a CDL driver having to watch this before he gets his CDL license, I think it would make a difference. And it would make a difference for everybody. Us on the street, the truck driver. The truck driver right now, and I'll get into that in my next little spiel. I know he did not intend to do that. He did some stupid damn stuff. I agree. But the insurance industry, the trucking industry, everybody wins if we have smarter and more careful truck drivers on the road. Anyhow, if anybody has a magic wand out there to help guide me to the right people that could make that happen, I would love to see that. The other thing I want to touch on, and I'm going to hush up, the next October 11th will be 4 years. And we're still waiting. This truck driver has gotten all these appeals. He's been found guilty, but the case is sitting in a pile at the state Supreme Court. And I have written letters to the Chief Justice. I've rang every phone I can ring in the state to try to get this thing behind us. And it's not just for us. And it's not to find the truck driver guilty. It's to somehow or another, when this guy is convicted and he's paying his dues, he's supposed to get 2 years. He got 10 years in jail with 8 years suspended 4 years ago. And we're still waiting for that. And obviously it hurts me, but we need to send a message to these truckers and to our folks on the highways, the highway workers, the state police, anybody that work, the towing industry. You see it all the time where these folks are getting hit. We got to try to make a difference. And I appreciate this opportunity, Chief Bennett. And again, Hooter, I love you. And we call each other quite often. You're like my son. And I'm just so appreciative of what the fire service has done for us. And move over. That's it. But it doesn't help us good to preach it. We know it. We need to get this message out to the other folks.
Thanks, Chief. A couple of questions actually came up so the cause of the accident was literally driver inattention. I mean, it wasn't hydroplaning. It was no issue with that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. It was just driver inattention and basically ran into the back of the engine.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Again, that tractor trailer had passed Rescue 10 while they were responding to this call for the regular accident. The original dispatch that came in, this tractor trailer passed that unit on the way while they were going.
Chief Buchanan, what advice would you give to other officers or firefighters that deal with the loss of one of their own?
I definitely would say have a plan, see what your department's plan is. And if they don't have one, find somebody to help you make one. Take advantage of the resources that are available to you, whether it's through the National Fallen Firefighters Department, national peer support groups, any of those. Take advantage of that to all those groups, and know your people. Check on one another. I'm blessed with some great friends that kept a check on me, still keeps check on me, and I really do appreciate that, because I can tell you, if it wasn't for that, I know I wouldn't have gotten through it. Officers seek out, fire officers seek out others that have had this type of event happen. That is probably one of the most important. People are going to console you and say, "Oh, I know exactly how you feel." No, you don't. You don't have a clue. But thank you. I appreciate it. But you don't have a clue until that guy comes up and says, "Hey, I've been through this. This is what happened to me. Let me help you." And that's That's big. Advocate for your folks. Advocate for your safeties. We added some things to our engines on the side to have a traffic stick. We have them on the back of all of our units, but we also have lights on the side that are in conjunction with that. So when you take that right or left side block, you've got those lights in as well that are telling people, hey, kick over to the other lane. You know, one of the things that I did was I followed the process all the way through, whether it was as my belief as a chief officer that these guys needed my support all the way through. This is a bond that you'll have with these folks forever, until you know you're in your grave. And they were great when they followed them through their treatments, followed them through the rehab, and followed them through the litigation, which was, you know, that was an awful experience for anybody to have to go through. But for them to be on that stand and look out and see, hey, there's my chief, there's my company officer, there's my coworker that's here supporting me and helping get me through this. You know, don't go through it alone. Have some support.
Thanks. And I'm going to put the shameless plugs in for the programs Chief Buchanan's talked about. The uniform support groups, which he's a member of our IC to IC cohort, chiefs, incident commanders, company officers, people that have been through this and are available to help with others. You can go to our website, get the information, contact me. We'll take care of it. And he mentioned preparing a department for line of duty death. We have a taking care of our own program. All these are grant-based. There's no cost associated with any of these. And we can come out to localities, regions, and help a department prepare and put a policy and procedures together for it. So thanks for those, Chief. We got a few more pictures we want to walk through. Chief Buchanan, Chief Clark, if you just have comments on a couple of these. If I can figure out how to share here, that would go.
That was a picture that was taken the night that we left the service for Brad at the Meadow Events Park State Fairgrounds, and yep. That's just I had that picture on my locker at work just to remind me of what I have and that nothing is a given.
That was an incredible service. That really was. It went through. It was amazing.
That's a picture of Carter there. That's a very moving picture there, to see where he was, how he worked to get back to where he is now. He's back on a job now. And that's him getting his graduation certificate. And that's an excellent shot right there of him.
You give us a quick update. So Carter's back on the job.
He's back on a job. He's doing what he loves to do best.
Yep.
And besides the fire department, he's hunting everything that has a season in it.
Excellent. How about Chris and Dave?
Chris has moved on. He's working for the Henrico County Division of Fire now.
Yep.
He's doing well. I do talk to him, not on a regular or daily basis, but on a semi-regular basis, just to check in on him to see how he's doing and following him through social media with his family and kids. Dave looks like he's doing well. I don't get to talk to Dave very often, but him and his wife had their first child, and he's a proud papa. So excellent. They look like they're doing very well.
Excellent. Thanks. A little bit of move over law and the efforts on that. Chief Clark, you mentioned the efforts on that, especially with Mel.
Yeah, I tell you, it's been a family pursuit to try to make things a little bit better on the roads. So the picture on my left is the then governor of state of Virginia signing the new move over law with my family, Chief Pyland, and a couple of other chiefs or members of the fire department. The balloon on the right is a good friend of mine that I work with in Henrico, and he has this business with the balloons, and called me one day and said, hey, how about a banner that we could put on the balloon? So we all chipped in and got that made, and he flies that quite often in the area, just trying to send that message out. Excellent. Thanks. Wow.
That's the bridge that runs over top of 295 at the 38. That was dedicated to Brad. There's it's actually actually two. Down on the interstate, it's right there. We picked up an old guy there to help us fix the flagpoles and stuff. But down the interstate, there's a flag that flies on each end, north and south. And up on the bridge, there's one on each end of the bridge that flies. And usually if I see something wrong with the flag, the company and I will go out and take care of it and make sure we got fresh colors, and not tattered colors, but they're fresh and it's well kept as far as the sign goes. And that's just something I like to do, and the guys don't mind doing and helping me do it. It helps them as well.
Excellent. These are the Downey Award there. Yep, the Ray
Yes,
Downey
sir.
Award there, Chief. So
Yep. And that's the that bottom right is the plaque that we went to when Brad was recognized at Emmitsburg with Lieutenant Kegley as well. And that challenge coin right there is one of Brad's phrases that he used to coin all the time. Justin Ide made that when Brad got that award. Him and Brad had quite a relationship, and that picture on the top is one that Justin had taken. Him and Brad were good friends, and he had made that coin, and he had given it to some of us. So only fitting to have it there right next to his name.
it's pretty neat. And then we just got the video kind of summarizes the incident real quick. We'll show.
Fire departments across Central Virginia are honoring a firefighter who died 3 years ago today. Hanover Fire Lieutenant Brad Clark was responding to a call when troopers say a tractor trailer rear-ended his fire truck on I-295, killing him. Our Shannon Lilly spoke to first responders who say Clark's death emphasizes the importance of being aware of emergency crews that are working on the roads.
It happened so fast, so quick.
October 11th, 2018.
We were at our emergency operations center. We were actually in the middle of a hurricane.
Hanover Fire Battalion Chief Gregory Martin witnesses a tragedy play out over the radio.
We were able to hear a lot of the emergency traffic.
43-year-old Lieutenant Brad Clark was killed and 3 other Hanover firefighters injured after a tractor trailer slammed into their fire truck on I-295 while they responded to another crash. 3 years later,
Brad was quick with a joke. Brad was really funny.
Clark's absence is still felt.
When he's not there, it makes you remember. So while this may be the 3rd anniversary of his death, you know, we're reminded of his work every day.
Chief Martin says each year since Clark's death, the fire department has emphasized safety, taking time around this anniversary for a stand down to review protocols while on an accident scene.
And we do that in Brad's honor to make sure that our guys are fully aware of what their responsibilities are, what they need to do, how they need to conduct business.
Over in Goochland County,
so on each one of our first out engines and our ambulances and even our staff vehicles, we have put Brad Clark's name here to recognize him, show respect for his death.
Goochland Fire and Rescue Deputy Chief Tony Gordon says each year Clark's tag is placed on their trucks as a reminder.
By having him there, Brad Clark at the top of this list, it shows us and reminds us that we need to be extra careful while we're out there, because it can happen. We never know when we're going to make it home or not make it home.
Chief Gordon says the department stepped up their training following Clark's death.
When Brad Clark got killed, it made us wake up and think about this and try to be a little bit safer every day that we go out.
He also says you, as a driver, play an important role in their safety.
I think Brad Clark's death brought a lot of attention to the move over law.
The move over law requires you to proceed with caution or move over when you see emergency flashing lights on the side of the road. Chief Gordon says in his experience, drivers still aren't doing that.
I mean, I was just on the interstate here earlier this week, and traffic was zipping right by us at highway speeds, not even slowing down. And then you have the people that are distracted while they're driving. They're actually got their cell phones out trying to videotape or take photographs of whatever they're passing by. Chief
Martin adds that how you drive could mean the difference between life and death.
What we ask our community is to understand that, you know, we want to go home too. We want to go home to our families. We want to maintain our life.
So important. And following Clark's death, lawmakers passed a bill that toughened the punishment for not adhering to the move over law. Now, if you see flashing emergency lights and you don't slow down or move over, you could be charged with reckless driving on your first offense. That's a Class 1 misdemeanor.
It's a good recap of everything there. So, Chief Buchanan, thank you very much for your willingness to share the incident and tell us a bit about what happened and how it truly impacted you. Truly appreciate that.
Appreciate that, sir.
And Chief Clark, can't thank you enough. Again, I've known you for a long time, and that was an outstanding presentation. I truly appreciate your courage to come on and talk about Brad and the fire service perspective of this. I think it really extremely powerful. Truly appreciate it.
It's I can't say it's my pleasure, but it's the old thing of making chicken salad out of you know what. And if we can prevent one of these happening down the road, then I'll do this all day long. Be my pleasure.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you both. Thank you all for spending some time with us. This will be recorded. It is being recorded, and we'll post it here soon, so you can share this presentation with anyone. We're getting quite a few comments here for both of you all. Thank you all very much, and a very powerful presentation on it. We got one more in October 27th. We're going to talk to Chief Jim McLaughlin, Hartford, Connecticut Fire Department. He was the incident commander at a residential structure fire that killed firefighter Kevin Bell. So we're going to talk about his experience and what he dealt with in the aftermath of that as well. So I hope you can join us at the fourth Thursday in October 27th, 1 p.m. Eastern time. And until then, y'all be safe. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Sir.
Take care.
Yep.